now call to order the regular meeting of the Leominster Conservation Commission for August 28th, 2018. We'll start with our continued hearing. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. There'll be a public hearing to consider a notice of intent by Robert Bolio regarding the paving of an existing gravel lot within a riverfront area and bordering vegetated wetlands, address 1145 Central Street, map 549, lot 9, DEP 199-1071. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Hannigan.
Is Mr. Hannigan coming?
I believe so.
All right. We'll leave this open until he comes.
Okay.
Unless you'd like to represent yourself,
I
but
might have to, who knows?
okay. Oh, can we even move on to a 6:10 hearing?
No, we can't.
All right.
We can go on to the regular meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't we just go start into our regular meeting then? Certificates of compliance,
Not this time.
extension permits,
Not this time.
any new communications?
Not this time.
Yes.
Oh, there he is.
You're not waiting for me, are you?
We'll do the minutes while he gets his breath. Minutes for July 24th, 2018. Everybody have a chance to review them?
I just had one minor revision. There was just the words, it was about the paved the parking lot, and I asked about the fencing.
How you feeling?
And I think the word was, it just said there, and the actual would have been to remain.
Yeah, I got your email.
I saw the
Yes, I got
email,
in the email
yes.
another correction.
I don't have a
and
specific-
made them.
I remember seeing that, correct, so.
But
And you got, I know I had a correction, Paul had a correction, Larry had a correction.
Yeah, I got all
You
those.
got all those, and those have been changed in the
Yeah.
minutes. Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes with those changes?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the minutes with those changes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right. Mr. Hannigan,
How are you?
we're here to talk about DEP 199-1071.
All right, I'm here to talk about it as well. So at our last, for the record, Bill Hannigan hearing representing Robert Bolio. At the last meeting, we talked about some of the aerial views that we had looked at relative to the use of the property. We talked about having that area be crushed stone and then kind of having an area that would be allowed to be remain paved along the side of the building. Since that time, I've had a couple conversations with Mr. Bolio telling him that I think the commission's been very, lenient with him on this, and I think that it's good to try to work together. So what we're proposing now, and this more or less came about today, was, or yesterday, he has a storage container on the property that he needs to keep there. So we've reoriented it in that general location where there was some activity in the past that we've all seen. And then instead of doing the stone in the back, he's agreed to vegetate planting of native species to basically create a buffer on the backside of that, which I think would be much more palatable to the commission. So I brought these tonight. And these will become the plan of record, I guess. Well, on the board for the TV. So, in general, the area that would remain paved is about 30 by 12 to fit the storage container, to allow the end door to open and to allow access into them and out of them for the purpose of additional storage that he has a need for on the property. Aside from that, everything we talked about on the right side of the building, the north side, would be throwing down of some seed mix to kind of help augment the situation in that area. And then behind and to the the south and southeast or southwest of the building, that area would be, the pavement would be removed and have to be vegetated with native species and grass or whatever in that area there. Recreate the buffer in that location.
Any questions?
There's no egress with that,
The door is actually in the front.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't remember there was one in that
Yeah.
area, I just
Yeah.
couldn't.
I just, I'm sorry.
The door to the building is right here where the little black arrow is.
All right.
Yeah, he was questioning whether the door went out that side, but it doesn't. And I actually did, and I meant to actually bring one of the, but one of the aerials from, I think it was 2014, actually has a vehicle parked right in this area too, as well, which, doing the research, you've probably seen it as well. So if that's acceptable, move forward with that plan.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask?
Yes.
a question? So that space, Bill, that's for the doors on that container to open? Is
Yeah,
that
the door at the very end of the container here will swing out.
a single door that swings back
I
towards?
think it's a
the tray?
double door, but then that would leave them room to get in and out of it. I think the
Have
doors are
access to get in.
4 feet each, right? There's an 8-foot wide,
8 feet, 2 fours.
2 4-foot doors, so that would allow them to swing the doors out and have room to work without basically trampling on the stuff he's planting, et cetera, and more practical.
And is there a decision on the species of the plant?
He's working with, I think, Earth Solutions are going to be doing the work, and they're going to try to pull together plans as far as species go. We're specifying native species, but we can work that out with Angela prior to planting,
Okay,
if that's acceptable.
and it's 12 altogether.
I think that it would be, that's representing plantings. I think that whatever the plantings are, that would make sense, that would fit with, depending on what they grow, I would just more or less try to show representation of plantings and species.
Is there going to be any berm or anything between the existing pavement and the new vegetated area?
Yeah, there is a berm shown, that's the double line.
Is that going to get put in? Okay.
Yeah. So they'll cut and then put a new berm in that location or something similar, maybe. If the contractor says you really can't put the berm down, it might be that they do like railroad ties or something like that, just a break, just have a break between the two.
Any other questions or comments?
Yep.
Yes.
If this were to get approved tonight, when do you think this would actually get constructed?
I don't know. I think that would be Mr. Olio's decision, but.
Part of this work is remediation for enforcement order. I just want to make sure it doesn't sit there. That's all.
I don't know if I can get it done in 4 weeks. I'm leaving in 4 weeks.
So more than likely.
It'll be, as soon as I come back, I'd say May next year.
Next spring.
Unless I can get immediately.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's tough to get contracts right now to do anything, so.
Yeah.
But within the next year, I think that would be fair.
Now, while you're away, do you have anybody running this for you? No?
Closed.
Okay.
Let me ask him a question to make sure that if you were to rent it and open it and have someone running it, would it be, wasn't there a guy who was going to do the car dealership?
There is a car dealership here that rents,
Right.
but he's only got 1 car or so in the front. He's only got a 5-car license,
So it may be open, so
No,
let's
well,
talk
yeah,
about, let's
I
talk about
won't-
what your question is then regarding that. So if it is open, I guess that you would want the snow storage done in that area, but not pushed into the brook. is what I
Yeah,
understood your
that's kind
details.
of the,
Yeah.
So
You know what I
that
mean?
would be, I don't want him to say it's gonna be, he's closed, but the
Right,
the other
right.
person may
There
be.
might be other
right.
things in,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think, Bob, just so you understand what they're asking is that while that's still paved, that you store the snow there. where it's still paved right now, in the backside.
You mean, you're telling me to store the snow where?
We're back here, where it's already still paved.
Yeah.
Okay?
Store the snow there?
This winter,
This
if you don't-
winter,
unless
yeah.
you do it. If you do
Unless
it.
I do it,
Right.
okay, okay. Yeah, we can
I don't
do
wanna
that.
speak for the commission. I
No,
think
no, that's
your meeting.
pretty much what I'm kind of getting at
Yeah,
is.
right.
is,
That's not a problem.
Okay.
if you don't get to actually tear it up and vegetating it, use that for
Don't,
snow
the
storage.
biggest thing is don't push the snow into the brook.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
so. Any other comments or questions? I'll open it up to the audience. Anybody in the audience like to speak on this notice of intent? Second time and third and final time? Any objection to closing the public hearing? All right, I declare the public hearing closed. Comments or questions, or do I have a motion?
No comments. I'm comfortable with leaving the vegetation plan to our agent. I don't think we have to have that information in front of us. The one thing that concerns me is the timeline, making sure that the work gets done. So I would propose that we condition that, have everything completed by November 15th of next year.
November 15th of 2019.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It might be done this year if I can get the gentleman to do it.
So you'd have essentially 3 growing season chances to do it.
Right.
Or 3 strikes, let's say.
Right, right.
Just one comment. Just especially in this area that is paved, I still would like to see like equipment, like nothing go beyond the edge of pavement. A lot of times, any vegetation that's there, we want to maintain that vegetation. So that the back edge of pavement where that curbing is really needs to be the limit of activity on the property. Those big trucks can't park in this area anyway.
Yeah, if they do, they park along it.
Yeah, but I still would like to just see that as an ongoing thing, just because it's a tight spot, and I don't want
Yep.
to see anything interfere with the growing of the vegetation.
All right, so how would that be worded, the conditions?
No.
Vehicles to be parked as not to interfere with vegetative growth?
Yeah,
Take off the
vehicles
tape
not,
later.
yeah, vehicles not to be parked, no vehicles beyond the edge of pavement.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a condition of November 15th, 2019 for all work to be completed. Ongoing in perpetuity, no vehicles to be beyond edge of pavement on the site. That is it.
The vegetation plan.
Oh, and the vegetation plan to be approved by our agent prior to installation.
Where do we determine snow storage? Is it on here? Is it on the plan, the snow storage? or-
No, it would end up being, right to the area of vegetation is.
So,
And the
a
snow-
condition, snow storage being the vegetation.
Snow storage in the vegetation area.
Okay. So the south side of the site, that's where the vegetation is stored.
Yep.
Would you be able to store it if they were trees?
Yeah, you store between the trees and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really for, my view of the snow plowing, in this case it's a little bit different, but typically you basically clean the snow up and push to the edge and stuff like that. Then when you have larger storms, then you can end up with big piles. So that would be where the overflow snow storage would be in that area. I mean, he also has room in this area here, within this area.
Yeah.
Right there as well.
We just get tight on that storage container to be able to access that if you start.
Right, so that he would probably actually backblade that out and then maybe push it into this area here. So we could actually designate this area as snow storage, if you'd like, here in the south end of the site. Which is from a practical perspective, it's probably going to be
Any other conditions or comments?
So, we got a tree here, okay, that the power company's put in a telephone pole. But that's gonna come down so they take the cable up.
Right.
We're gonna take it out of there.
Right. So, power company right now is doing the power is, we're doing, the National Grid's actually looking at putting another pole. They've already marked it in the field right over this here, right here, with a guy wire.
Oh.
So this tree is gonna come out soon. When that comes out, we're gonna dig it up and repave that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, just so you know.
That's fine. All right.
You just notify, have somebody notify the commission before, so
Yep.
if we get calls of people digging in.
Did they give you a timeline besides sometime this year?
No, he's doing a project now, but I don't know. Might be able to get him immediately, I don't know.
No, I'm talking about the power company.
Oh, they already marked the telephone pole across the street, it's coming down. They already marked the place on the next piece of property. They got it marked, they were going to a hearing. They're taking it down between now and next
City
year.
Council actually probably to do that, and that might be, it's probably gonna be this year. Yeah.
With the electric company, it's no guarantees. All right. Do I have a motion with all the listed conditions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 1,145 Central Street, DEP file number 199-1071, with the special conditions that no vehicles shall be parked beyond the edge pavement. All work under this order shall be completed by November 15th, 2019, and that the landscaping plan shall be approved by the conservation agent prior to construction.
And snow storage on the south side.
And snow storage, yes.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor? Opposed? And abstained? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our 610 hearing now. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, there'll be a public hearing. Consider a notice of intent by Thomas Christopher from Christopher Environmental Associates regarding the removal of dirt and fill from a wetland in the 100-foot buffer zone of the bordering vegetated wetland, address 141 Lincoln Street, map 564, lot 49, DEP 199, 1072. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Christopher, representing, you know me.
Thanks.
Representing Mr. Cosenza. Apparently, Mr. Cosenza at some point earlier was issued an enforcement order by the commission for some illegal dumping of fill into the wetlands. He has appeared in front of this board and certainly is amenable to any of the conditions that the board would like to place relative to the removal of the fill. We've been out on the site a number of times, and, oh, by the way, actually there still is, this is what the fill area looks like. Sorry. And there's also an old track path. So essentially what's happened is, came down along the edge of the track path, dumped this fill. And as far as we could estimate, there's about 2,700 square feet of filling as part of this violation. So essentially, But when I filled out the original notice of intent, I was under the impression that we would be hauling the material off-site. Since then, we have identified an upland area that would be suitable for placing the fill and would be useful to Mr. Cosenza for something else relative to his backyard. The upland area that we've identified is outside the 100-foot buffer zone. And if you can see from those photographs, at some point prior to my arrival on this project, he somehow secured some rather surfaceable large filter socks. So what I would suggest to the commission is that we reflag the wetland and establish the 100-foot buffer zone and use those serviceable filter socks to mark that, and then redeposit the fill into that area. Relative to taking the fill material out, either myself or another wetland scientist will be on site to do the soil sampling and check the grade to make sure that we get back to originally where the edge of the cart road was. I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't assume, but I'm guessing that the cart road also has a shoulder to it. So what my plan is to do is just follow the grade back of the wetland soils until we get to that shoulder and then grade it back up. Once those operations are complete and the fill is dumped in an upland area, we'll reseed the wetland area with an appropriate wetland mix. So that's our plan at this point. If the commission would be happy to put into an order of conditions relative to what I just elaborated on, our client is happy to comply with your order. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. This orange line, which is the edge of cart path,
Yes.
is that the historical
As
edge
best
of
as,
wetland
best
that we
as
know?
I could determine, yeah. And what I used as a marker was where it started on the grade uphill, and as it was coming into the area where the wetland started filling.
Okay.
When I spoke to Angela, I asked her if the commission would require an engineered plan for this. You really don't need it for something like this. We need to get that material out of the wetland.
Do you know, you estimate how much fill there is, yardage-wise?
I am guessing about 300 yards
About 300 yards.
at the tops.
Okay.
Might be less than that. It's difficult to calculate because the level of fill varies from a couple of feet
Right.
to about 5.5 feet. And I don't really know what the wetland looked like before I got there, so
Right.
this is gonna be a step at a time.
You're guessing, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So we have done this type of restoration before, so we are experienced in this. This is actually a small one.
Questions or comments?
Do you know the type of fill we're dealing with? Do you know what's in
It's
there?
mixed fill, some rubble in it. Basically, it looks, I'm sorry?
Asphalt?
Not asphalt that I've seen. If there is asphalt, as we move along in this process, certainly we'll set that to the side if the commission desires, and be happy to deal with that appropriately.
Who has been out to the site? I know Angela, you've been out there, and you have been out there, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to just take a, you know, if everything's flagged now, I think I'd like to just go out there and kind of see it and get a good sense. I know it all happened kind of fast, you know, that everything that happened, but
I would actually like to go back now that it's flagged.
Well, when I marked that with marker paint, we've had a number of rainstorms, and I was there this afternoon checking the site. I'd be happy to meet with you out there sometime if we can arrange a suitable time. And if the commission wishes to grant a continuance, certainly I would be happy to request that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the site, but, you know, you guys been very good working with us, so I think,
The day I was there was difficult to determine. I mean, it was a lot of filming, so it was hard
Right.
to say
Mhm.
what was what.
Right.
So I'd like to go back and
yeah.
take a look.
There's a particular time that would be convenient to you? Because I have my calendar with me. I live by the calendar.
So the way we typically do it is I'll send out a doodle request with a number of different dates and times, then you select the best ones, everyone in the commission will select the best ones, and then I will pick the one that works the best for everyone, including the consultant.
Okay.
I'll send out that one, usually like 5 days notice typically. I can do more notice if needed.
All right, that's fine. We'll try to work it out.
Okay.
Appreciate getting out here early. I can get to my own meeting.
Yeah, so would you like a continuance? until
Yes,
we can do-
I
Okay.
respectfully request a continuance until we can have a sidewalk and get
Okay.
the commission members more familiar with the project. At that point, Mr. Cosenza has started some tree clearing. I'll make sure that in the meantime, I will get out there and flag the wet area that will be far enough away from the, flag it so the upland area can be easily distinguished from the wetland area. I'm happy to do that.
That'd be helpful, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. And Angela, you have her contact information and everything, so
All right.
we'll set that up and we'll,
All right.
hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we'll have that.
Would you like me to take those? Or would you like
Thank
to-
you.
Nice to meet you, folks. You're all new.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
All right, our 6:20 hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended. It be a public meeting, consider a request for determination by Neil Zaney from the Garden Spot regarding the exception status of the following, but not limited to, use of a drainage system that has been in existence for the last 20 years, normal fertilizer and treatment chemicals in the greenhouses, and the cleanout of an existing water source under normal maintenance. Address is 76 Granite Street, map 543, lot 5. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Matt Morrow. I'm representing Mr. Zaney. We, again, as agreed, filed a request for a determination to try to figure out exactly what we need to do to get all the issues of jurisdiction straightened out.
Okay. I have one question.
Go ahead.
We've been talking about 66 granite, but this says 74 granite. What is 74 granite and what is 66?
74 granite is his house.
Okay,
66 granite is the farm. 74 is the house.
If I may,
yes.
so that's where, I know I had sent you a message about it, you put 66 Exchange
Yeah, I don't know
Street.
why I
just
did
wanted to
that.
make sure.
Don't know why I did that.
Okay.
I think separate lots? Or is it all
What's-
one lot? What is lot
We
five?
advertised for 74 granite. Is it the same, if it's in lot, map 5,
That I
map
don't
543, lot 5?
I mean, it's his residential house, which is part of the farm.
Are they the same?
But it's like
Same
the
piece
same
of
business, but they're just kind of two different lots.
And when you click on the, you click on the house lot, it says 74, you click on the lot next to it, it just says Granite Street, and then it says, you know, his name, contact information underneath it.
I'm just thinking logistically, are we okay?
I believe so, because it isn't labeled an RGIS system as 66 Granite Street either.
Okay.
And essentially, it's not a public hearing, so there was no notification to a butters required, so.
Okay, I just,
Yeah,
legally, I
right.
just do wanted to make sure that everything's good, so. All right, so the three things we're looking at is a drainage system, fertilizer, and a clean out of a water source under the RDA. Questions or comments from the agent and or commission members?
Take them one at a time, or is it, are they kind of all part and parcel, same thing?
We can do them one at a time. That's a good idea. Has the DEP filed any comments or
Not that I've seen.
nothing at this point?
It's an RDA,
They wouldn't? Okay,
not typically, no.
okay.
Actually, no, in the western region they do.
What's that?
The western region they do.
Out here, yeah.
Not here, but the western region they do.
Every region's different. Very different.
Comments, questions?
So the drainage system,
No? Okay.
so the drainage system is, where you're talking about just taking the effluent from the facility and draining it to the brook? That's
No, it's taking rain runoff
rain runoff?
and it drains it out. It's during the normal storms, it
Okay.
keeps the roadways from puddling.
Okay,
During the real heavy events like the rainmageddons that we've been having lately, the area will flood out because of the insufficiencies of the brook.
Right.
And there's not much you can do about that. He's in a floodplain and you know it when he bought the property.
yeah. And so that is the basin that he was working on the last time?
Oh, he was cleaning out, that's an existing basin. If you look at the historical
Yeah.
aerials, the farm was there, it's been there.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's his water source. And it got all filled in from that last storm with everything that was coming in off
Okay.
the site. So he basically cleaned
Clean
it
it
out.
out, okay. So that's what we're talking about, the one we're talking about, okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys wanted to let you know when stuff like that happens and he needs to do an emergency clean out, I mean, that's more than reasonable. He wouldn't have a problem doing that.
Yeah.
He's just been doing it on his own for so many years, it's just, it would rain, heavy, you'd get those heavy downpours, everybody would flood out, it would fill in a little bit, and he'd pull the offending material out.
Yeah.
It would be mostly silt, he'd let it dry in his field, and that would be it.
I thought when he was here, he said he put like concrete in or something. I thought that's what he said.
No, there was,
He told us he put cinder block or.
there was cinder blocks over on the end of the rows where he has his crops, that was to help keep the crops from being
Yeah.
washed into the brook. But that's the extent of the concrete, other than the concrete that's probably used around the catch basin that we put in.
Yeah, I think he
Somebody's
was
got the
saying,
concrete
yeah.
there.
I think he was saying he put that concrete in though, when this whole thing first started, it was because he was putting concrete in that basin. He was like putting.
When it,
Well, if he started putting concrete in the basin, he thought better of it, because when I went there, I didn't see any concrete.
Okay.
go ahead, speak for yourselves.
I did not go on the most recent site walk, but I was the first one on the property with our agent. And one of his workers was using mortar mix and cementing concrete block, building a basin with an outfall pipe that was extending into the stream. So I don't get the 21-year, I mean, that was 21 years ago, time flies.
Well, the drainage has been there for 21 years. What he's had gravel pads, a little drop well, and then little pipes going out. Okay, he's had them in a couple locations. One location is still like that. The other location is where he went in, plopped in the drop basin, and then put the pipe back in. He was doing that to try to catch any materials that was coming in, because what was happening, it was constantly plugging it out. So he decided to put in a drop basin so that he could just pull the material out of the basin. Because he'd have to keep pulling the gravel back, cleaning out whatever was underneath it for a dry well, and then putting it back up. This time he decided to put in a drop basin.
This was a basin that had a trench that was excavated all the way to the stream. So
He was replacing the existing pipe that was there. There was another
So
pipe that was there.
we have a new basin with an existing outfall pipe
Mhm.
that goes to the stream.
Mhm.
So where does the 21-year period come from?
It's been there for 21 years. He simply just replaced the basin. He had the gravel basin with a drop basin. Just changed the material out.
I'm all set, Mr. Chair.
Comments and questions on number one? Next is normal fertilizer and treatment of chemicals in the greenhouses. I guess, I know when I was on site, for our site walk, we talked about this being used as drainage for the site and whatever else. I did witness and took some photographs of material exiting the greenhouses, and it obviously contained some sort of fertilizer. I don't know if it was chemical, natural, but it was definitely rainbow in color, going directly into a small little ditch right into the catch basin within a few minutes. So again, it all comes down to what are we draining? Are we draining stormwater? Are we draining fluids from a greenhouse? I guess that's kind of my question of.
Well, essentially, the way I understand his operation, and from what I've seen, when he goes in the greenhouse, what you're probably saying was him watering. He waters
Right.
his crops. When he waters his crops, there is a hose that takes excess from inside the building and gets it out. Otherwise, the building would flood out. But that's normal operation in his greenhouse. It doesn't catch like heavy flows of rain. So any of the storms that we've had, the greenhouses are pretty tight.
Right.
So it's not like there's like flooding water flowing through and everything's flowing out. Everything he does is with normal business and standard practices for agriculture,
Okay.
which is, that is allowable under the regulations, so.
Okay. I guess one of my biggest questions is it keeps coming back to what is exempt and what's not exempt. I guess we'll get to number 3 in a few minutes. We're using an active stream as a treatment facility, basically. He's using it. When he was here, he specifically said he takes water out of his pond here, uses it, it gets dropped and gets put back into the brook. To me, that's using a brook as a treatment facility. I cannot see how that is exempt from any, because he's a farm.
Okay, I'm gonna have to find out exactly what he meant by that statement, but all I ever see, other than the occasional hose coming out of his greenhouse, is everything's flowing overland. I don't see a deliberate attempt to circumvent, like, put in this elaborate drainage structure where he's pointing everything at the stream. But the plain fact is, that's in a floodplain. You look at that area, he's allowed to build in the floodplain, he's allowed to put his greenhouses in the floodplain without a filing, as long as it meets the 4,000 square foot footprint, okay, for each facility, not just a total limit. He can water those crops and it can flow everywhere till the cow comes home. I asked the EP about this, and their question to me was, where does all the water go, regardless? It goes to the same spot. So regardless of what he does, the water is all gonna wind up at the same spot. That is an indisputable fact. How you guys feel about how he's doing it, I guess, is the question. And that's totally up to the commission's pleasure, is what they decide.
Right. Because that brings me to the third one, is to clean out an existing water source under normal maintenance. To me, it looks like he's dredging it with an excavator.
That still qualifies as clean out. See, the thing about agriculture that's commonly misunderstood is agriculture is not a pretty business. Things that you think should be normally filed for, the state lets it go. They build it into their agricultural exemptions. Piling manure right next to, within 25 feet of a wetland, You did that with a non-exempt horse stable, it would be an enforcement order. You do that with a farm, it's promoted. There's a lot of differences here that need to be thought about. That's basically what it amounts to. And again, it's a judgment call on your part.
Right. I've read the regulations for agriculture as best I could, and the first sentence says, you can't put drainage into a resource area, and that's kind of what we're talking about here at this point, is this a resource area? And my answer is yes, and that means he's not exempt.
Well, respectfully, I would disagree with that, because my contention on the drainage is, you're talking about irrigation versus drainage off the field. The drainage that you're referring to is actually to accommodate his gravel roadways. It's been pre-existing there for a number of years, so. Again, it's purely a judgment call. If you feel it's not applicable, then obviously you should rule as you see fit.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question, Matt, just on the ponds. What's driving the maintenance on that? Is it stuff from the site getting in it, or is it stuff coming from the stream?
It's stuff coming from off-site.
Offsite, so
Mhm.
from
When
the
you have
from the
a-
stream,
yeah.
kind of, that, okay.
That stream carries a lot from up above
Right,
it.
yep. So,
If that's for me, I'm not here.
All right. Questions or comments?
I think the biggest concern I have is just that a lot of it is, if you're taking fertilizer and putting it directly into the brook, I mean, whether you're a farm or not, you could put the fertilizer somewhere else.
He's not directly dumping pure fertilizer, it's runoff coming from the greenhouses.
But could it just,
I can ask him if he can redirect his hoses out into the field.
because, I mean, the ground will naturally absorb that. I mean, I know some of it's gonna, in a flooding condition, but in a drought, if water's still flowing, out of the greenhouse into a drain and going into the brook, now that fertilizer's gonna get there, but in a drier condition, there's a chance that vegetation might absorb some of that to lessen the impact on the brook.
That's a very reasonable request. I don't see an issue of why that couldn't be. Very reasonable request.
Right. So what would this commission like to do at this point? Do we have any comments or questions? Do I have a motion or recommendation? Sure.
You mentioned, Manny, was gonna have somebody come out and help him out with the agricultural.
Actually, it's the NRCS. They're going to do a conservation plan.
Yeah.
They're slated to, well, the time they had available was the end of October. He's trying to speed it up because he wants this done.
Okay.
But, as a friend of mine once said, you move in at the speed of government when it comes to the feds. So,
Frankly, my concern's not on the regulatory end of things, it's more or less the housekeeping part of it. I mean,
well, I think that's where the conservation plan would come in handy because
Right.
it would be a document that we would all basically put our heads together on. Because the conservation plan has to be agreed by with you guys as well. So it would be a guidance document not only for him sealing his exemption, but it would give him a specific set of conditions of when he should see you guys, what he should do with his drainage, as Mr. Janakis pointed out. It would take in all of it.
Yeah, I just get very nervous when I hear agriculture exempt, farming's a dirty business.
It is.
But there's best practices that can be done on a
Even
farm,
the best practices don't.
but he's not
also
using the
affect
best practices from what I'm seeing. From when I was on the sidewalk, that was a cheap, easy way, not a better way. So that's where, my major concern is on the drainage. I'm looking highlighted right here. All these exemptions, all crop management practices, but not including drainage into a wetland.
Right, in other words, on
That's-
his croplands, he can't take the drainage off the cropland after he irrigates and then point it right next to the wetland. He can't do that.
There's a greenhouse crop.
No, the crops are in the greenhouse. And he's not pointing it directly to a wetland. And we can take it and have him point it out to the field. I mean, it's an easy fix.
These are the things that we're majorly concerned about. So I think there's better practices that site can be using than currently, so. Do I have a motion, an issue, concerns?
Are we comfortable closing it tonight?
That's up to the commission. Or do we want to leave it open to get some agricultural experts? Do we want to
personally, I don't know how prolonging this helps,
Correct.
but, and I think I've seen enough that I need to see on the site.
Okay. Do we want to open?
I missed that, excuse me.
We were just wondering if we should keep it open, or do we want to close it tonight?
Can I just,
Yep.
I don't think we opened it up to the public.
We can do that.
I just wanna make sure that we don't.
Yep, we can do that. So, all right, we'll open it to the public. Anybody in the public like to speak on this notice of intent? I mean, this RDA, sorry. Second time and third and final time. All right, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Do I have a motion for 74 Granite / 66 Granite Street?
Discussion first, or?
We can have a discussion.
Okay, so my take on it, on the regulatory end of things, I think it's on a fine line in the gray area. And I'm willing to give the property owner the benefit of the doubt on all three of those items in there. What I would like to see though is the conservation plan in front of us at some point. I think it's more of a housekeeping issue than a straight regulatory thing at this point. The regulations do give farmers a lot of leeway.
Right.
You know, with the concern about that pipe that was clearly put in right next to one that was existing there, you can kind of see the old one still functioning. Is it a best management practice to have that collect water that's a few feet from the greenhouse? No, but that's what I'd like to, see as part of the conservation plan later on, you look at things like that. But can he do that kind of activity? I'm not convinced that he can. But there's certainly better things that can be done out there to prevent any pollution, but at the same time, I don't want to give somebody trying to run an agricultural business a really hard time on the regulation part of it. If they can come in with a best management plan, show us, how he's going to do good housekeeping essentially, and go from there. I'd rather not see engineered plans and all these other things that show that he's doing. It's
Okay. So do we want to set a timeline to get?
Mr. Chairman, I was about to suggest that if you wanted to set if you deem it appropriate to issue a negative, my suggestion is to issue a conditional negative with a timeline to get his conservation plan done. In the meantime, if the commission likes, I can work with Angela, we can go out on site on a regular basis, work with Neil to see what we can do to at least start some cleanup on the different management practices to where everybody's a little bit more comfortable. We can come up with some suggestions, come back to the commission and go over them. I'm more than willing to appear in front of this commission once a month to update you on what we're doing. And that way we can have a work in progress in addition to that conservation plan. I'm more than willing to do that.
Okay. Commission members, do you vote that?
In the meantime, if we're going to use that phrase, this material is going downstream to every property owner from his property all the way to the center of Leominster. I really think that if we're going to take some time to wait for a conservation plan or whatever it's going to be, that we should take some steps to block that drainage. To have that going into that brook every single time we get a gully washer, and we're getting them, and it's not going to get any easier. I don't feel comfortable at all that that thing is there.
Honestly, I can respect that, but the plain fact is, you get the gully washes, as the phrase is, that area's gonna pond up. I mean, there was a point where he didn't want anyone on the property, and it wasn't just including you guys, it was anybody, because he was worried about his liability. I mean, it's a floodplain. You get those 3-inch rainstorms, you get the, whatever the heck we had like a week ago, and it's, no matter what you do, close off a drain, open up a drain, put in a new drain, put in a detention basin, the same thing's gonna happen. It's just gonna happen in a different spot.
And
It's because of where the farm is located.
And ponding up is a far cry from a point source discharge. And that's what we're dealing with. We have a point source discharge directly into a stream. I've seen it, I'm done. I'm done.
Comments, questions?
I like the idea of condition and timeline for the plan.
Okay. What would that timeline look like?
My take on it, I think you mentioned sometime you could get out there in October.
The NRCS is supposed to be out there around the end of October. He's trying to get that moved up.
Do you think November 30th is reasonable?
Oh, absolutely. But in the meantime, I mean, it's, what's the date today? The 28th. I mean, when's your next meeting?
September 11th.
And then when is the next one after the 11th?
Yeah, it's usually first Thursday, so.
25th.
Yeah.
On the
The
25th?
second
roughly,
or
yeah.
Tuesdays.
All right, so I'll come back on the 25th with the status report, because I'm gonna start working on these issues in the meantime.
Okay. So November 30th, 2018 will be the timeline. Okay.
I think the plan's a good idea. I mean, when he came in, you know, he's just telling us this is the dirty side of farming, instead of kind of offering, you know, good housekeeping steps to help improve the situation. You know, to sit there and hide behind this and say, I can do this and I can do this. I mean, there's a lot of farmers that are very ethical and do a good job and take care of their farms, and things happen on a farm, but to constantly have bad housekeeping, you're almost giving all other farmers a bad name by sort of hiding behind regulations and saying, you know, yeah, this might be bad for the environment, but I don't care because I'm a farmer. That's, you know, so I think this plan is gonna be a good way to get everybody on
Well,
board.
that was one of the reasons why I recommended strongly to him that he do the conservation plan. When
Yeah.
I pointed out the merits of it, he actually thought it was a wonderful idea to go. It was the direction he needs to go in.
And I
He
think,
knows this.
yeah, long-term, I think it's great because he can run his farm and, you know, there's an agreement and it's an understanding, so when this board is changed over once or twice, there's still a living, you know, a document.
The document, yeah.
You know, that they can always be referred back to, so. I'm willing to wait for that document, I think. It sounds like.
Right, so do we want to issue a negative determination at this point?
Someone have to make a motion. Did we close it yet, or?
No. Close it to the public.
We closed
I did
the
close
hearing
it,
to the
okay.
public and we were discussing.
We were just discussing, correct?
All right, well, I'll make a motion then. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we issue a negative determination of applicability for the address, is it 74 Granite Street? Or 66, what was it?
It doesn't come up in JS as 66, it comes up as Granite Street, parcel under Neil's Eady's name.
It has a assessor map.
Yes,
Number
assessor
one.
maps are
Okay,
correct.
and those are correct?
Yes.
All right, then I'll word it this way. For map 543, lot 5, with the condition that we receive the conservation plan from NRCS by November 30th, 2018.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. Last League Field's having some stormwater issues. Just so new commission members know that we do own this parcel of land. We allow them to use that. The rainwater from the past storms has washed away the field, and they need some repairs. They're also interested in putting in some drainage, but are looking for the commission members' guidance. Nicole Wheeler, president of the commission, of the Lassie League, is present to discuss.
I did bring some pictures. I didn't bring enough for everyone to see individually, but, so we have five fields up there. This is the lower field, so when you first come in, the field on the left, the lowest field, that's field 3, and then it goes 2 and 1, and you go up. So this is the one that we're having the most issues with, is field 3 with, obviously, we all know how this summer has been, which has been horrible. This is several days, this is like during a storm, this is several days after, and this is also another picture along the fence. So along this fence right here, this makeshift, I don't know, pipe that they dug in was done maybe about 6 or 8 years ago, previous board members, to hopefully drain this out because it puddles so much. But we've had so much rain, these areas are so low that they stay like this for several days. And we literally out there with like hand pumps, trying to get the water off and booms and can't play. We've had so many games canceled. You can see this, how the water has just, and we have like trenches. So we're trying to figure out what we can do down there, knowing it's conservation land, knowing, you know, we have to be very careful with what we do, kind of looking for you guys for guidance on what we can do, what's appropriate to do. You know, obviously, we need to get the fields playable. We need to add some material to them to level them back off, but we don't want to do that until we can figure out some type of appropriate drainage system, at least on that lower field. That's the worst one, field 3, so we can start our fall ball season.
Where's all that drainage go?
I was just gonna ask that.
Angela's been up there.
So, sometimes it goes down the road and there's a catch basin. When I was out there, you could follow the trail down to the catch basin.
You can see all our materials.
Straw wattles out there to kind of catch it before the next rain.
Yeah, all our material's just going right out. That's the lowest field, this is the upper field, one of the upper fields, and
It
same
washes like
thing,
the
it
field
just
and makes
washes right out.
Oh.
So
Okay,
the
so
upper
it stays
field's
there,
washing
right?
down, and then the
right
lower
onto the field.
field,
Yeah.
it just, everything's going down the road. So me and Angela talked about those, and I'm gonna go to Tractor Supply and look for those to try to keep it on, but it's still just pooling up there, so we wanna figure out a way to take some of the excess off, but where do we direct it? You know, is gonna be our issue, or what we should do with it.
I don't think that's resource area. I think the wetlands are far enough back that it's only an issue once it hits the detention the catch basin.
Where is the catch basin?
It's about 30 feet from the road if you're going, it's like right in front of where the conservation sign is on that little.
Oh, so it's in the woods
yeah.
back.
No, it's not in the woods, it's on the road.
Oh, it is
But
on
it's
the
just like
road.
a catch basin, you can kind
So
of see
like
the trail
right
going
on
down.
the-
Right on the curve.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but when my daughters played, I used to kind of go for walks out in the back.
Should be watching your daughters play softball. That's a whole nother story, Larry.
I mean, this summer's been just horrible. I mean, that drain, that was a makeshift, the old
Yeah,
presidents and stuff dug it in to try to help. It doesn't do anything, it's clogged. It's really can just be ripped out. It's just a piece of plastic piping that doesn't do anything.
Looks like it's way undersized anyways.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, it looks really small.
Yeah, especially for the rain that we've had, 'cause you can see the water just kind of paved its own way through there over the past summer.
And I'm sure you want to do this as soon as possible so you can.
Yeah, we have fall ball slated to start in 2 weeks, so, I mean, I gotta add some material anyways, but I figure I have I've been calling, athletic companies who maintain athletic fields, and, because I need the material added anyways, but if I can do something for the lower field with the drainage prior to adding the material, so I'm not just losing it all again, that would be best. And we have some landscaping companies like Bartlett Landscaping, their daughter did play in our league, and then they also support our league, so they said like they can come down with their tractors and help. We just need to know
What to do.
what we could do, and that would be approved, and we wouldn't be, violating anything, or.
Have you seen how far the fields are from the resource area?
They're pretty far.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can tell, they were.
They're
from what
like,
can recall.
I didn't go out there and measure
Yeah.
because the fences and
Yeah.
everything, but they're way over 100 feet.
Yeah.
But since we own land, we have to approve whatever work is done.
I mean, it's not jurisdictional, so I don't really know.
Because the Conservation Commission holds it's a conservation land, so the Conservation Commission holds the
ownership of it,
license.
yeah.
and
So we have the
control
lease
of it.
through.
Yeah,
Right.
We're the stewards of the property.
I mean, they've always just kind of done their,
We have usually kind of, I think, in the past,
Yeah.
they just
But
kind of do their
Ms.
own thing and
Nicole,
not know, but.
Is very communicable, we communicate a lot
Yeah.
with the fields.
Yeah, I mean, they usually
which is
come in and say,
good.
hey, we want to do this, and you go and do it, we say, yeah, go ahead. I mean, obviously, this is an issue. That'd be my only, without actually going out there myself and looking. And, I mean, getting a contractor would be ideal to get somebody out there as long as the drainage isn't going into its resource area or something like that, you know what I mean?
So the resource area is actually up in the grass, like.
It's like
tree
way
land.
in where the woods are.
So it would be staying, if there's any drainage, it would be going.
It would still be going where it normally goes, but we would hopefully be catching the silt.
Well, even the catch basin, once it hits a catch basin, if it probably enters a wetland, so we just wanna make sure that none of that silt is leaving the property and getting into that catch
Yeah,
basin.
so we
Right.
discussed, some straw wattles.
Yeah.
I did get DPW a call, see if they could get some down there.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't have any issues with you doing this because this looks like a mess.
It is, we've had so much rain, actually, the infield and the outfield, the difference, like at shortstop area is about 4 inches. So I played a game last week and the ball hit that area just, straight up, so that's, number one, can be a ball injury, number two, can be a twisted broken ankle.
Right.
So I gotta get the material out of it, the straw would probably be helpful, so it won't wash out. Yeah, some of the material won't wash out.
I know we had discussed a perforated pipe where the large rock is on the property. Possibly
Yes.
to kind of catch it and hopefully slow it down so it wouldn't be hitting the field at such a rapid speed.
So that, I don't know if you can see it from here,
Yeah.
one of the pictures are, so this picture, so up here is actually a hill, and this field's lower, so there's, so up here is the hill that comes down, so everything that comes down the hill kind of washes into the field. You can see over on the other side of this dugout, there's this huge boulder, so we talked about maybe digging some type of drain, this way, out to the road, just so before it gets even this far, it will kind of be funneled out.
We had a commission member, Ed Cudahy, and this is what he used to do this for, like, I think one of the baseball fields. And I mean, he would talk about the stuff all the time, the drainage they put in, so, I mean, I don't even know how to get in touch with him, but I'm sure
What's his
he would.
name?
Ed
It
Cudahy?
is common.
Cudahy, C-U-D-A-H-U-I maybe, or H-Y?
Line.
But he, I mean, this is, he does this stuff all the time. And
No, I mean,
so he might be a resource to be able to help with, I know he helped with drainage at one of the fields, and he just does it himself, so he just kind of, he understands how all these fields work,
Right,
so.
how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now these are all low spots, all the puddle, these are all like really low spots from all the rain just washing it. So once we add the material.
You don't want to
and-
just wash it.
Yeah, laser graded, it shouldn't do that, but to prevent it from the future, definitely doing something just to keep it, if we laser grade it, it should just all funnel off naturally. But,
so do you have a short-term plan to keep this under control? And then a little bit longer term, meaning?
Yeah.
We're prepared on getting some erosion sediment measures put in place.
Okay,
protect the
to help
area.
kind of-
Yeah. I just wanted to bring commission's attention, obviously, because this is going to be a quick project. Hopefully, we can get in contact with a few people who can help out.
yeah, we just did some
And viewers.
fundraisers to get some money up, I just had a donation, and we put it out to some of the city officials to get some donations, and to get this done pretty quickly in the next couple of weeks. To get some help to get this situated, so that way we don't have no ankles or
Right.
anything like that when fall ball starts in a couple of weeks.
Any issues or concerns?
I would just like to see at some point what's being proposed there, because even though it might be outside of the jurisdictional area, in my experience with stormwater pollution runoff is, it usually starts way outside of the jurisdictional
Right.
area, so if it's a point source, even if it's a couple hundred feet away, it could be a straight shot through the irrigated area into the resource back there, and I think Mass Auto Lawn owns what's behind there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm comfortable with doing whatever repairs might be necessary, but just like to see, in advance, just what you're doing there.
Okay.
That's why I thought, like, if you have, short-term, like, let's get some erosion controls, for lack of a better term, but then, like, drainage and.
Like the straw bags and stuff.
Yeah,
like
you know what I
fence,
mean,
put
like-
material in there.
That's fine, but I guess I would like, if you're gonna start digging trenches and putting in some pipes and doing some other, a little bit more,
Yeah,
just
I
kind of let
have-
us prior to know where.
Right, and I want, obviously, I don't wanna just go do it, you know, myself. So that's why I've been calling some of the different companies who do athletic fields and do drainage, and they know, you know, they're pros at this, and this is what they do, so they could kind of see where the water goes and what would be an issue and how to do it appropriately versus that pipe that someone put in 10 years ago or so. It doesn't do anything.
Plans are just fix the problem short term, and then before you do any large construction, I think, just
Bring in like a plan. like
yeah, just kind
put it down.
of, even if the contractor wants to come in and just say, this is what I'm gonna do, this is where the water's gonna go. That's our biggest issue, is we just don't want silty
Right.
water and runoff from the fields going into the resource area or, you know, something like
And
that.
I think the resource area would be up higher. I didn't take any pictures of the street. Videos.
It is, but a lot of catch basins, a lot of times they'll collect it, but
Oh, I
two,
don't know.
you know, 100 feet down and dumping it into a brook or something, right off the
Right.
Central Street or something like
Right,
that.
right.
You know what I mean? So-
Okay, yeah.
So, no, I think you're going in the right direction. I just, we could just know before what you're doing,
Know
that's
before.
fine.
Okay, that's fine. So would I just, like, come back to another meeting and present like
Yeah,
the plans?
you can just, you know, just keep Angela
Okay.
in the loop and just let her, you know, let her know what we're doing, and
Okay.
I think we're good. So,
Perfect.
we appreciate you
Excellent.
coming in.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, I'll be in touch. Thanks.
Old business, Moosonok Road, Moosonok Brook. You still got your grants going?
Still looking for grants right now. It's not really the ideal time for them, I suppose.
Okay. Enforcement, 723 Willard Street. Hannigan Engineering is representing the applicant, well, not the applicant, but the homeowner. And it's an encroachment on city-owned conservation land. Mr. Hannigan.
For you.
Good.
I'm here actually with Peter Dandini as well. And what I wanted to give the commission is a sketch of where this is. We actually went out and surveyed it so that the commission can understand from a plan perspective where this is. And what we had done originally when this was brought to our attention, I got involved obviously way after some of the initial letters that went out to Mr. Dandini. I got involved and I actually had talked to the prior agent, Marco, about the concept. And I think we had talked about it with this commission, maybe a different membership, about the concept of an easement or a license, and that's when I think we went back out and did the survey work that we did. When I brought that to the mayor's attention about the possibility of a license, seemed like a good direction. I then brought it to Greg Jacqueline, who ends up creating the license documentation for the use of the city-owned land. And at that point, he thought an easement would be better. Went back, sat down with Marco, and then from there, what the next step was never really happened. So more recently, there's been letters that have been issued to Mr. Dandini. He's brought them to my attention, and I think at one of the last meetings, I said I think that we should just come in and talk with the commission. I believe the last meeting was our original intent, but I had a conflict, I wasn't able to make it. So we're here tonight, more or less to discuss with the commission what's out there, what's happened, and what the direction that the commission would like us to proceed in for this whole trespass area. So essentially what's happened is on the back side of his lot, he's extended his land use and created a basketball court, built a shed, put some fencing up, cleared land, etc. This is on land of the city of Leominster, but it's under the jurisdiction of conservation. So although we're not in any buffer zones or jurisdictional areas, it kind of falls the same as the Lassie Lake field. It's your land, you can tell us what we can and cannot do on it. So the idea that we had was to gain at least some sort of understanding of what's on the property, try to get the commission's permission to move forward with a license agreement, that we would then have some sort of an end date or a trigger mechanism that the equipment and the structures that are built on that property would be removed at some date in the future, and the area would be restored with vegetation and the like. So that's the current approach that we're looking at. We're trying to have some discussion about that, so, I think that in our discussions, the license policy or the license process, I guess, is a year-to-year thing, so every year we'd have to get the license renewed if the license was granted versus an easement, which would become permanent. So the idea of, we felt the idea of a license may be more palatable, because that way it would be, at least it becomes something that would come up every year, we could discuss. And then as far as the end date of this, and we're talking with Mr. Bandini, where his kids have, he's through high school with his kids, they're in college now, but they do occasionally, come home and, during the summertime they're there, they use the basketball court, he used the shed for his storage of his equipment for mowing the lawn and stuff like that, like everyone else does. So he's in the area of, say 10 years down the road is where he would be comfortable taking everything down and removing and restoring it. My suggestion relative to that would be to have some sort of a bond in place that, should something happen to Mr. Dandini and it doesn't get done, that the city holds a bond that would basically pay for the removal and restoration of that area. We could work with DPW and engineering on determination of value of that bond, and that would be basically attached to the license agreement. If that's something that we find acceptable, then I think that would both allow him the continued use of what's already there and allow the commission to have the ability to ensure that it gets taken down at some point in the future. So with that, we'll open it to discussions.
Okay. I'll just make a comment that I know myself, along with a lot of the other commission members, have done some research, and from my research and laws, and I think we might have gotten some direction from our attorneys that there is no mechanism in place for any sort of licensing, easements, sale, or anything for this property. It's under Article 97 of the law. It requires 2/3 vote from the commission, 2/3 vote from city council, and then it has to go to the state legislature. It's the only possible way that any sort of agreement can be made. Period. That's the law as it states. A license can be granted, but it can only be, what's the term?
Granted for what the land was originally intended for.
What it was originally
So that's
land
a
for,
recreation.
which meant open space, field, and woods. So that's the only way any, again, this is my reading of it, it has to be used for its original intent. So that's the problem we have. We can't, no one can offer any sort of easement, license, and/or sale other than the state legislature in Boston. So, yes.
If you look at Executive Office Energy and Environmental Affairs, they actually have a pretty well-written policy on how to dispose of Article 97 property. Like the chairman was just mentioning, it does require conservation approval, it does require, in this case, city council as well, and it would require the state legislature. If it was easier than that, there would be hundreds of communities trying to do the licensing approach, the easement approach, et cetera. What most communities are struggling right now with is trying to find buildable land for school expansions, DPWs, things of that nature. I was involved recently with a school expansion project ran into the same Article 97 problem. That land was quickly abandoned and moved on. I don't see any other route other than that. So, and again, the Conservation Commission would have to have the appetite for it for that first hurdle.
Right. So straw poll, do we have that appetite? And because then I would have to talk to Mr. Dini about whether he wants to, obviously he would need to hire attorneys to actually run this through the whole process. It's beyond my expertise. So if we get past And I'm not saying that I'm asking for a vote on this. I'm saying that I still need to talk to him about, getting the vote in your favor doesn't help you if you're not gonna move forward. And the cost of moving forward may outweigh the benefit. So I'll have that conversation with him, but in general, if there was a way to make this work under the conditions or the terms that I discussed with a bond or something like that, and we were able to get commission's approval, and we were able to get city council approval, and we were able to get legislative approval, all of which what I'm feeling is probably a long shot, would the commission feel more comfortable with doing? Simple question. If no is the answer, then we have to go to a different route. If yes is the answer, then we still may go that different route, but at least I can talk about what the costs are relative to that, and we'd have to get attorneys involved, because that would be beyond my expertise.
Right. So, at this point, I think this has gone on for quite a long time. It's on city property, it's conservation land, and I don't think this commission is willing to allow one particular homeowner to have city-owned property, especially conservation land, under our control, so that's my opinion.
I concur.
So that answer, I guess, would be no. There is no appetite.
Two people are saying that they concur, so I don't have 2/3.
I'll throw in my comment too. If I'm gonna vote to dispose of public property, it's gonna be for a better use than expansion of someone's backyard for a recreation court.
Mr. Chairman, there's a Senate bill right now that went to Ways and Means Committee back on, October 19th, 2017, with an emergency preamble, and that will become law on October 19th, 2018, with or without a vote. And that law is an act that's protecting natural resources in the Commonwealth, and it's going to make it even tighter to dispose of any type of Article 97 lands. And I don't see anything down in Boston that's getting in the way of that at all.
So, at this point, I think this commission is in the thoughts of remove and restore. That's the only option at this point, unless it goes a different direction.
Just one other thing too is, the city's gone through a lot of expense to get to this point. We've had to hire lawyers and write letters that went unanswered, and the city's taxpayers have spent thousands of dollars to get to this point. It's very difficult to have an appetite to try to do anything like this when, everything that we've asked, just a simple response, please come to a meeting, just, have a discussion, just went unanswered for like 2 years. And now we're being asked to try to accommodate, after all that expense, and that's the city of Leominster taxpayer money. Anyone that lives in Leominster, it's coming right out of the, that's money that could have been used for, whatever. Instead it went to a lawyer in Boston to write letters that went unanswered. So personally, I wouldn't be in favor of any kind of license agreement
Okay, so
at this point.
what I'd like to do then is go back, discuss it with Mr. Diodini, come up with a plan, and we'll present that to the commission, of what we're gonna do. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you for your
That's
time.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
35 Berkshire Drive. Is that our pictures? There's some pictures
Yes,
somewhere.
they have they're labeled in the header. I met with Mr. Lemonakas at the site, he's
Yes,
here today
sorry.
representing himself. I did speak with Mr. Karen, he's not here tonight, he feels that you have a pretty solid plan, and
Yeah,
that
I
it'd
do.
be better for him to spend, to be on site for the restoration rather than come to the meeting.
Well, the last time you came to see the situation I had, I talked to Chuck yesterday, the wetland scientist that I work with. His most important factor to keep that water from going down is to create some kind of a berm, as we
Yeah.
spoke of. I talked to my contractor, we can, it's not a very big berm, I don't think, if you noticed that.
Yeah.
probably about 20 feet. You can create that with rock. From the last storm we had, it's actually almost did me a favor to show how that water routed. And now I know where to reroute that water. And as we spoke, to remove about 6 inches of earth that got drained down to the bottom of the area there, and that's not going to be a problem either. I can also finish the project by planting the seed that Chuck also recommended me to do. Yeah, I got a handle on it. I think I can put this together. Of course, Chuck will have to come and see the final restoration plan, but it's not a very big area, but it's still something that has, again, as everybody else was saying about the storms that we've had, it's just hard to watch where the water goes and try to contain it, but I think I can make it happen.
It could be, so what happened was when the rains we've been having, it's washing everything off the road, and because of the curve in the road, it's all hitting down there. He
Right.
showed me a video, it was like a waterfall.
But it did come in one focal point near that tree.
Right where the tree is, you can see the
One focal
roots.
point, and I think that, as Chuck noted in his notes here, to reroute that water to a undisturbed area that doesn't bother the wetlands area. So that can be done.
That's a
This
lot of
resource?
water.
It was
That was
a
that
lot.
last storm.
It was a lot, I
erosion,
don't know,
wow.
he showed me a video, it was,
Yeah.
Is
That was
this the
the last
resource area down here?
nope, so that's right before the silt fence and the straw wattle, which protected the resource area, yep. The resource area doesn't look like it got too much.
So this is,
Yeah.
so
It's gonna need.
this
some
right here
resources right
is this area.
Yeah.
And this is the
It's-
wetland.
Yes, it's probably 50 feet by 15 feet that has to be brought down another 6 inches. My contractor can do that without any problem. I think that the slope is okay that we have created last year. That's pretty much intact, except for where that one tree is, where the water flows down.
Okay.
But a rock wall, I have plenty of rock on my property, so I can create that. And as long as it's not going all in one section, right?
Yes.
So that, as long as it's dispersed a little bit, I think we'll be fine.
Did you plant this embankment at one point?
I did not.
You did not.
I did not.
He had stabilized it, I believe in jute mat.
I was gonna
Yes.
It looked
say,
like it was
and it's
pretty
still
fine.
washed away?
Yeah. Well,
The
again,
mat still there is very degraded.
but again, this is from the reoccurrence of these big storms that we had over and over and over. And for the past 60 years, that probably wasn't even moved. But like I said, as I spoke with Chuck yesterday, I can do whatever his recommendations are, but I think I can reroute that slightly so that it's not going all in one area.
How long has this erosion control been up?
A year.
They're still all intact?
They're rough. They most definitely use a little, probably a little replacement with all the silt that's getting into them. But they held it. They did their job. Yeah, it's like, this is a straw wattle log, so it's kind of been caught in the very same depth, I think, so.
This is the same tree, right?
Yeah, that's the tree, it's a better picture. No, it's another. So it's like a wetlands right behind you if you're looking at that tree.
So what are we waiting on, Chuck?
I don't have to wait, I can start this immediately.
He just wanted to come to the commission, present his
Yeah.
plan, so we're all on the same page.
I mean, not tomorrow, don't get me wrong, I mean, immediately as in.
Right.
Right when you get home?
Yeah.
So your plan is to remove this material,
Yeah, but I. at
obviously
least-
fix this erosion, put up
Yeah.
the rock, kind of,
Yeah.
you're trying to spread it spread out the point of water.
Right, you just can't go on one focal area where it's just a waterfall, so if we can reroute it, and I think the rock will do that purpose. As he spoke to me on the phone, he goes, you have to create
Slow
some
it
kind of a berm,
Yeah,
some kind of a slope. I can do it.
okay.
And I recently was taking an erosion and sedimentation control training the day before, and that was, one of the ideas was that they had suggested for a site like this would be like either a mulch berm or a rock berm with mulch to kind of catch any silt so it can go through it.
Right.
And it'll protect the area, but it'll also stop it from being like a heavy force.
And it'll slow it down
Yeah.
through that kind of thing.
But again, that was
And
the rain of the century, basically. I mean, that doesn't happen every, who knows when. I mean, it could happen tomorrow, but
Now, are you gonna revegetate this
yes.
area?
Yeah,
once
he
it's-
told me I have all kinds of
Like
seeds
the
and
original.
plants.
Oh, he's got a whole thing,
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
It'll look good.
Any other questions, comments?
I think it's a good plan. I think getting the area stabilized is a big thing, and
Well, that's what he said too. You gotta
Control that water.
stabilize that water from
Right.
just going down that hill.
All right, I think we're good.
Good, okay. And everything will go through him anyway, and then you folks
Yeah.
too, so,
Okay.
just a matter of getting it started and getting it going.
Okay, we
All right.
appreciate you
folks.
coming in, and
Okay.
and
Thanks
like
a
I
lot.
said, if you
Thank you.
keep Angela in the loop, that'd be perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Yeah, sure.
What was the original enforcement order? What was the language on that, do you recall?
I don't know.
Bear with me.
You should have asked earlier.
So the wetland area, direct alteration of wetland occurred. The restoration that was agreed upon was, restoration will require removal of the fill, restoration of the BBW, and stabilization of the adjacent slopes. Removal of fill will be straightforward, and that's more, all the trees, all the plantings would be put into place, which, what hadn't been done, which is probably why I had eroded so quickly.
Right.
I think that was the real issue, is that, because if you look at the other areas in that area, all of their all of the, slopes are very well vegetated and
yeah.
stabilized. It was really just there where having like the jute mat and,
Well, that was my question.
yeah, so we had required for him to do that. We had very detailed plan to do so.
Okay, that's it? Yep. All right. 96 Exchange Street, DP 199-1061. Says on hold, but
It was on hold when I had posted this. I had recently been contacted by Mr. Colombo on Sunday morning, I believe. There had been some work taking place, so I did contact the last contractor I knew to be involved, which is Dan's Excavating and Paving. I contacted them, morning I talked to them. They had been informed to go ahead and start the work. They were not aware that it had not been lifted. I explained to them that they were not supposed to be doing any work. They apologized for misunderstanding. I did get in touch with Mr. Oldfield, who also had been, they got the okay from Mr. Zaraz, was the general, and I
Okay.
explained to them that that's not, it's what the site is not up to par, the erosion controls are not appropriate, they're not in the correct place. I did talk to Kent about having the wetlands delineated before work take place, and he informed me that they were not going to be doing that.
The wetland flags aren't in place.
They're not in place.
That's a
and-
standard condition.
Yes, they informed me, he said, well, Mr. Jimmy's not doing that.
So if they don't do it, then we do, my suggestion would be to do a formal enforcement order.
yeah.
I mean, that's one that the state would back up, it's their condition.
So who?
But I did get the stormwater management plan signed, as well as I made sure it was delivered to all the contractors, and they have reviewed it.
So who did the work? Dan's Paving?
Dan's paving.
Okay. And there was obviously a subcontractor, so
Yeah,
it's
there was
really
a
not their
contract out for
responsibility to.
paving. And I've been working very closely with them, because they really do want to do the right thing, and they are aware of the slip, and they're reviewing it, signing it. I have important that they should have it on a post in the area accessible. While they get the post accessible, they're gonna have it stored in one of their trucks so that if we go into the site, we can access the inspection reports. And they've gone through the process of how to do that as well.
But they were under the direction by the property owner or developer to move forward. Okay.
The work that was done, are they in the buffer zone?
I think they're very close to it. I don't have a reasonable way to measure from where the buffer zone of the wetland delineation and erosion controls are all over the place. I really don't have a good measuring even by the eye, because the area is all extremely overgrown. You can't really even see the erosion controls now. And you can't really tell, because I know we had approved, or the commission, I apologize, the commission had approved the wetland zone in the extent further than what the commission had approved, which obviously we can't take back, but.
Well, I think there was a photo I saw in the, somewhere else, that showed the existing development next door. You can see all their buildings. Those buildings are on the plan set, the plans that we approved for this, so you can probably look at those
Okay.
buildings and see where the disturbance is and know whether you're in the buffer zone based on that, regardless if everything else is missing on the site. That should be able to help you figure out where exactly you are.
There was a second flagging of that piece of property, and there was an additional finger of wetlands that went up. And if you look at the original plan, you can look at that existing building, I believe it's between the first window and the first sliding door. So you could probably come, within 5 feet, one way or another. And based on what's done there, I'd say he's within 100 feet of that finger. I didn't measure it, but just looking from the road.
Yeah.
Beyond all of that, Mr. Chairman,
So at this point, we're under a no work, but it sounds like the developer has no intention of following our orders and conditions.
I can most definitely give them another discussion, tell them that, it's either wetland delineation or it's gonna be an enforcement order if you'd like. I can have that discussion with them
Okay.
and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Were the easements recorded that were required as part of
Yes, the easements are required. I did work with the registry of deeds to find them,
Okay.
and they have been recorded. And then I'd also discussed that their plan is to put, because that was one of the conditions, they were supposed to put the foundations in first before doing any other work. And now they're they're going to be putting the foundations in first once they are allowed to do work, once the erosion controls and everything is settled. That's the next step for them.
Thoughts on enforcement? Or do we want to let Angela make a contact
Well,
first?
I want to know the facts before I voted
Okay.
on an enforcement order. So specifically, is the erosion control is supposed to be there in place? Are the wetland flags in place? And if there's anything else outstanding in the order? And are they in that buffer zone or not? They got to be in a jurisdictional area for us to issue an enforcement order. If they're outside the buffer zone, I wouldn't really want to do that at this point. Even though it could impact it, until it does, you don't really have jurisdiction. Ultimately, it really boils down to, is it going to impact the wetland resource area? If they're outside the jurisdiction and it's not impacting the wetlands, then I don't really have the appetite for enforcement. But as soon as they do enter the jurisdictional area and they're not complying with the orders and conditions, then I absolutely would.
well, if they're not complying with the order and conditions that they agreed upon, would we then be legitimate in issuing an enforcement order to stop the project?
Only if they're working within our jurisdiction, because that order of conditions is really for jurisdictional areas.
Right.
There may be something in there that conditions work outside of an area specific, but I'd have a hard time pointing to something that they're in major violation of at this point for that.
I do know that they are in violation of Leominster City's stormwater ordinance, because they're supposed to have approved erosion controls in place before disturbing soil, which obviously is the case.
Is there a non-criminal disposition policy as part of that bylaw, does it give you the option for that? In other words, in the bylaw and in the regulations, if there's no good enforcement mechanism for that, that really wouldn't be a good tool to use.
There's a fine. Well,
That's the
about it, yeah.
non-com, Okay.
But I feel that, just working it, they're trying to get them to become compliant would be the best way to go.
I think the wetlands regs is probably the one that you have more teeth with at the moment, rather than the stormwater bylaw. So I would suggest you keep working with them and see what you can accomplish in the next 2 weeks from there.
Let's see.
And if something changes in the meantime, let the chair know and
Keep an eye on it. Okay. I would agree. Moving on to 272 Central Street, removal of trees and vegetation within the buffer zone of a perennial stream and dumping of trees and vegetation down the embankment into the stream.
So I've received a phone call from the police station as well as the health department about some cutting that was taking place right along the stream. You guys can see the pictures I took. I did speak to a couple of different people on site. I got hold of the owner. Linda, okay. This is Linda. And they are here.
Now, are you the property owner or the business owner?
Both.
You have both, so you own the property and the business, okay. Why did you cut the trees down, first and foremost? Yep.
Good evening, my name is Juan Reynoso. I'm the person who run the place
Okay.
for her. And, as I didn't know it was a conservation area, so I really made a mistake. I came and I talked to somebody, which is, they work with me. It was very slow. We have a little issue, I don't know, did I talk to you over the phone?
Yeah, it was me.
Which is people was going by, we kind of parked right there, and it's kind of like, the tree was
Hanging
really
over.
hanging over, like, very bad. So at the end of the night, when we was leaving work, seems like a little scared to get to the car. So I told the guys, I said, we gotta cut some of this, I never told her to cut the tree from the bottom. I said, we gotta trim this tree so we can see our parking lot completely. So as I was working, they was cutting the tree. But which I saw was they didn't go really like on the back of the building like I told them. I said, do not go back of the building. We just need this side clear. The mistake that we think, I'm not positive about, the mistake that I think we did was that we cut all the tree, they cut the tree from the bottom, but they just not cut the tree. The thing is, they put all the branch and put it close to what the river is. So today, even today I went and I took a video, and I got the video here. I don't know if you guys want to see it, but none of the branch went right over the river. It went over. They all on the side of the building. None of the tree on the back, it was cut. The only one that was cut close to the area, it was probably about 5 feet from the asphalt, from the parking lot. And we're here to help and do the best we can and do whatever you guys tell us to do. So whatever we have to do to make sure we do the right thing, we're willing. We already talked to a company, which is with him, and
And Brigham.
Yep.
Yeah.
and they say they're willing to help us to take care of everything we need to get done.
Angela, you obviously went on site.
Yes. I'd say the brush was probably deposited like within you can see in the pictures, about 2 feet. Some of it looked like it had been in the middle, as you can see in the pictures. There was, the removal was that you can see, sorry.
Show me the video.
You can see right here, the stream is right on this paper
Page
here.
7.
Page 7. The stream, the banking's right on the other side, probably less than a 8 feet
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
from the dumpster. Or right there, so you can have some idea where the stream is. They cleared all that area, as well as onto the neighboring property, which is why the police have been involved.
that's
why I
right,
was
exactly what the
notified.
problem was from the beginning. We always have an issue with them, I don't know why.
Well, this is a problem either way, because you
Yes.
are in violation.
It is.
But
Yes.
not just because of that.
We know this.
Here's the neighbor property, and then you can see, like, I think I've taken some pictures of the stumps. They're like probably 1 inch, 2 inch diameter trees that have been taken out right along the edge there. You can kind of see them through the brush.
Angela, I got a question. It's kind of unrelated to this, but, well, it's related, I was looking at that picture 7. Are dumpsters supposed to be on a concrete pad? Because I know there's a lot of like liquids and things that flow
Yeah, I
out
can
of
tell you
dumpsters.
check the mark, I
Because I thought this was a project that came before the commission.
can look
They
into
did.
that.
I
Yeah.
did come, I remember.
Because I've never, anytime we've had projects where there's dumpsters, is that they're always sit on a cement or a asphalt pad to contain whatever is inside
Our
of it.
dumpster is on rollers.
Yeah, but usually it sits on top of something where the whatever
Okay.
flows out of it
So it's
can't
not
sit
Is
to
it
take
on,
down.
is it on this, on the asphalt?
No, it's not.
It's not.
That green is dumpster, yes.
That's why I just saw it and I'm like,
Yeah, I
it
didn't.
occurred to me that,
When I was on site, I was looking.
Right,
at
obviously,
it,
yeah.
and you can.
yeah. But we've had a few dumpster discussions and a few
Yeah.
projects that, I don't know what the actual health department regulation is, but,
I can talk to them down there as well.
and there is a plan for this too on file, because they did,
Well,
They-
we'll have to talk to the dumpster company.
Yeah.
That's their issue, not ours. That's where they
Yeah.
put it.
You know, we gotta tell them what to do.
But if it's on your plans for your order of conditions that you have for the lot, then it is also because you're the
Okay.
property owner, so it's kind of up to you as well to maintain that.
Yes, I mean, this definitely did come in front of us. And then, so obviously we have plans, all that other stuff before you guys open for business, I know for it coming. So most of the trees were, obviously, they looked like they were just kind of
They
a
were small,
small,
I think.
kind of shrubby.
Yeah, they're small limbs.
And basically they were just cut and the slash was just kind of left.
That's what exactly the problem is, yes.
And it wasn't like a company, it was just some of the employees.
It was us who did it.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I guess this is page 7, Angela. Are you suggesting that that area that we see from the front of the photo to the dumpster was cleared?
It's hard to see here.
That area looked like it had been cleared, had been disturbed, so I'm unsure if, 'cause there was also a good 15, it was the building, there was a large space there.
Yeah.
Because that whole area right there where all that brush is was disturbed. I can't say for sure if right here had been cleared, maybe they had cut down some weeds and,
Because like on picture 9 too, it looks like there's like a lot of debris.
yeah, I wasn't there when the cutting was
Yeah.
taking place, I was,
If you see on that picture right here, this is right here, which is on the back of the building, it's nothing cut in there, it's just like that.
Okay.
There was nothing over here. And it's probably about, like she said, it's about 15, probably the building is about over here, it's about 15 feet from there to the what the sign is to say, it's a conservation area.
So all that debris is basically just the
Yeah,
leaves and
no,
stuff?
yeah, no, this is
Cutting
a
the
bit like
trees down?
that. No, those have been like that. Nothing was cut on that area.
In what looks like it was cut, Angela, we pretty much see that in photos 2 and 3. That's kind of the area that was,
area. From what my discussions on site, was that the whole back of the building having also been affected, but I wasn't there on site, so.
And it looks like there's trash here too.
Yeah, that, unfortunately, that does happen. I did notice there was a lot of
Yeah.
trash and debris. This is along, this is like the back corner of the parking lot. That was about 15, 20 feet from the river, or the perennial stream.
Oh, yes, like I say, from that page number 2, That's the paving, and this is the cut that was
That's
close
asphalt,
to the,
it's for- and then when you go this way, it goes towards the main road, and then over here is, Emergent, Lawful Key, and their streets right over here. And this is, that would be a little way farther down. It was, it's like an L shaped behind the building. 273 Central Street.
I'm wondering if the original filing would have a more detailed plan of, but I mean, it doesn't look like much large, and nothing large.
It was, I didn't
actually.
see anything extremely large, anything that was extremely alarming. The main issue is it was all kind of tossed into and got down the banking.
What was-
And it was on someone else's property as well.
Was anything that tossed in there that was just vegetation, I mean, slash
Yeah,
trees?
it was, tree limbs, leaves.
Looks like it could clog up
So,
that area eventually.
Yep, so,
you don't want it straight.
No, but I'm saying like, it would also could prevent that other mess from
yeah, so it's
happening.
the one here, they cut
From-
all the way down that way, so down here.
So it's on Jim's Lock and Key side of the building.
that's where the key, that's where really the tree was cut, on the side of the building, not really on the back.
I counted
That's
probably
where it's
around,
belonged to.
anyway, I counted about 15 different little stumps, yeah.
Okay.
There was probably more after the brush, but I didn't think through it.
But those look all fairly close to the pavement, right?
Yeah.
Is there any way to get to that material in the brook without, is there any way someone could get down there and
Yeah,
pull
because
all
we
of
have
that
a
stuff
company,
out?
yeah, we have a company who's gonna take care of it, and we
Okay.
really will take care of it.
Okay.
I mean, if it's removing by hand, you don't, I mean, if you have somebody that can do it, you don't have
Oh,
to
we
pay
can do
somebody.
it on our own too.
Yeah, I
but-
mean,
I mean, I don't wanna see you
Yes.
go through more expense to take out
Okay,
That's what I'm
sticks.
no, we
saying.
appreciate it, because like I say, we can take it on our own, yeah.
If you just want to pull it out and then,
Yeah, I will do that, we'll start tomorrow.
I mean, I don't know you guys' thoughts, but I mean,
Yep,
what I
spoke
see
to
here.
them on site
There's not a
earlier,
lot there.
No, I just say if you could clean up the riverbank.
Yes.
Pull,
Everything.
pull all that stuff
I
out.
can, yeah,
Um,
I make sure I take care of it tomorrow.
Pull it out and then just dispose of it.
I
off
make
site.
sure I clean it up, and I make sure I take all the trash
Yeah.
around too.
Yeah,
Because like I
trash.
say, there's some trash there, and I will take care of it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I will start.
Any, I guess kind of going forward, I don't know, is everybody all set or want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, apparently some of these trees are on the abutters property that were cut.
Correct.
And they've been made aware of that.
Yes, the police are involved, so, and they would like that area put back to the way it was, they would like, yeah, they would like it revegetated. My conversation with them, their land, would like put back the way it was,
Okay.
which I had spoke to, I don't believe I spoke to, I believe I spoke to your daughter about that.
Yeah,
as well,
Lauren,
again.
yeah. She was there when you called.
Okay, I was like, I'm getting a little confused.
Is it the lot to the north or south?
Now,
The
are
walking
we allowed to cut trees that come over our property?
That's.
That would be a discussion for the building department, they know better what the rules are for
Who-
property
who do we
lines.
contact?
The building department, you can talk to either Carly or Marina.
It's a similar matter. Yeah.
Because they were
Yeah.
really, like hanging over, but
It's always an issue,
Yeah.
since we moved in, I don't know exactly what's really the problem back then. Sometimes we not even control the customer. The customer goes there,
So this is
and
the lot.
barely they go, like, because the two parking garages right next to each other. If they go a little over, they come right away and they say something. That day, she came, and she was very nice about it. She said to the guy, "Oh, you guys getting paid to do that?" And they say, "No, we work." I say, "Very nice, okay, that's good." She went inside, and she said, "What is the owner?" And then she started flipping out, "Oh, she's not here." So I tell her that, and she went off, and after that, the police came over. I talked to the police, I said, "You know what? I will do whatever I have to do to take care of it. The tree's already been cut. So it's nothing I can do. If she want me to plant another tree there, I will do that. But right now, to this point, it's nothing else I can do."
Right.
And, like I told the lady, "I'm sorry. I never told the guy to cut the tree. I told him to cut the branch over over the parking lot." And they didn't do it the right way.
I think it's more, I'm not sorry, in my opinion, it's more of a neighborly dispute on that aspect, and I personally don't wanna involve ourselves in that.
Yeah.
So obviously it's up to the commission.
Like Brad said, that's a little bit more up to a civil matter.
Yeah.
About planting a tree and not planting a tree. As from the commission, obviously our jurisdiction is the brook or stream. I personally would like to see somebody kind of just go in and clean,
I'll do that tomorrow.
pull that out, get that stuff off the site. Going forward, anytime you want to do work, not to say that you can't, just, you know,
Come to us.
contact
Yeah.
Angela
I
and
will.
just say, hey, the brush is getting out of control, we want to cut some. And
And I have your card there.
and she'll come down and you can say, hey, we want to cut all these, and she can definitely give you some guidance, you know,
Okay.
to do that.
Appreciate
So doing what you did, again, it's hard from the pictures, I'm not gonna say it was right or wrong, but just a little bit of guidance would avoid a lot of this in the future, so. But if
I
you
will,
could,
I will make sure I keep that on there.
yeah, so just clean it up, what you've done, and just get the brush off site. And if you could just give Angela, because I'm sure this will sit on our agenda, or at least be in touch, just let her know, hey, we've cleaned it up, she can take a ride down, and then we can kind of close out that matter when it's done.
All right.
So,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Emergency certs,
None at this time.
even with all that water?
Don't jinx it.
Any project updates to share with us, or any commission members would like to see?
I do have a project update on 392 Central Street. I've been in contact with Earth Solutions. They pretty much finished up the work that's going on over there. They did have to put in some extra erosion and sedimentation control measures up towards the road. They put in a little more riprap because when it was raining, he noticed it was washing out pretty heavily. So he adjusted all that. He added the riprap in, and he added some more riprap in down by the wetland to protect that area. I visited this site on Wednesday, I believe, and it was, you couldn't see any sort of runoff or erosion damage.
This is the used car.
Yes.
It did drive by, I didn't stop and look, I just kind of like pulled over and looked. It did look fairly,
Yeah,
it looked in good shape. I definitely did see some vegetation, which, from what I could remember off the top of my head from the plans,
yeah, there
it
was.
looked like that
the
seemed okay.
vegetation, me and Mr. Heron just have to keep missing each other. Earth Solutions is gonna give me the seed mix that they've used for the wetland, but it does look like it's taking. There was one concern that Assad, the owner, had approached me on, was that when Whitman and Big had gone out and done a survey, he said there was an issue possibly with the boulders. But I called Mr. Cleaves to kind of clarification on when I was on site, they are large boulders. And
Is it the space in it?
I'm wondering if that's it. I don't think I couldn't fit my car in.
I didn't stop, but I drove by at one point and I saw the boulders there, and I thought they looked far apart, but
I was like, to me, I was like,
I'd have
they
to look
look.
at the plan and be on site.
Yeah, I was like,
to
I
verify
was like, I didn't notice anything alarming. There wasn't like an immediate red flag to me when I was on site. The ones by the actual wetland restoration area are pretty close. I don't think I could get my SUV, my mini SUV through there, so.
We conditioned 4 feet on that.
I can't remember.
I don't think it was
It
that
wasn't
tight.
4 feet. No.
It was like, I think it was like 7 feet, I wanna say, but, I did leave Mr. Cleaves a message to kind of clarify on that. But, so I wanted me to bring it to you as well, so you guys were aware.
Did you try it?
What about Bel Air, what's that road on Bel Air?
Did I give you the email through, I received an email from Mr. Gorman, who's the developer. He's in the process, they did put in a lot of erosion controls and sanitation measures. They have a mini street sweeper there to sweep up after storms, prevent any silt from going down. I did go up there with the stormwater inspector as well, and the erosion measures are solid. And he is starting the process of getting the roadway in place. And, yeah, the process is going, and the planning board is involved as well.
Okay. Anything else?
I think on 103 Exchange, call that area that was cut going down to the.
Oh, with the Bobcat and all that, yeah,
I thought we had an agreement that they weren't gonna mow that. So return to a vegetated state. Is that ring a
They,
bell.
they mowed their lot area that was already existing, so I did notice that I was over there for
Right,
another
so
issue.
They got the tractor stuck down near the brook.
Yeah, so they don't go down that far. I think we agreed that we weren't going to mow the vegetation, like the brush vegetation area.
Or on the hill.
Yeah, up at the top of the hill, which is still, looks pretty.
Basically, when they were here, what was lawn was gonna stay lawn and what was brush was gonna stay brush.
Right.
That was,
That was like.
Just know there was some recent mowing and the tractor went in.
I do know that I drove, when I was doing my site inspections during the rain, I did notice that their yard had gotten really flooded, which I'm thinking what happened was they went to mow the regular lawn, didn't realize how flooded it was, because I did notice that when I was out there
Standing
yesterday.
water.
Yeah.
So I figured out.
okay. Anything else, projects? All right. Conservation Area Management of Hill Street, Dick O'Brien obviously is not here.
Yes. My last communication with him, he was supposed to be here to discuss this further.
Okay.
In other news, I did speak to John over at the DPW who's doing the survey. He's having some challenges finding the posts that he's using to survey. So some of them aren't where they're, like, he's just not able to find two of them. He can find two way up in the woods, and he can find two at the back, but he can't find two in the front. So, and with just the heat and the rain work, everything else is going on, he hasn't had a chance to get back out there, but he is working on it. I did meet with him today about it.
Okay.
And
He's finding the bounds, or,
yeah, he's just finding the boundaries for where we want to put in the,
Right.
where the commission would like to put in the parking area.
so it's just the two in front. So he hasn't actually surveyed, he's just doing the research to find out.
Yeah, he was trying to find them. He did go out,
See
he
if
was
they-
out there on site looking for them.
And he found them except for by the road.
Yeah, but it's
Okay.
being a little more difficult than he had thought. So he's just doing some more deep research on it. But he also, with the heat and all the rain we've been having, he's had some
Right.
other issues on his plate as well, so.
Okay. We received this letter, I'm just gonna read it, in for the record. This is dated August 13th, 2018. It's addressed to myself, dear Chairman Broder. As you know, I represent Ward 4 and has appeared at prior meetings regarding the concerns of my constituents. During the course of a number of meetings, as a result of research and prior records, it has been determined that the maintenance and the current hunting signs are completely within the purview of the Conservation Commission. Are you aware these signs have been maintained to protect the residents surrounding the Hill Street entrance to the so-called Cutler property for more than a decade? My constituents have voiced their significant and deep concerns regarding safety. Given that current system has worked, it would be appropriate to maintain it. If the signs are removed and an unfortunate event occurs, it would reflect poorly on all of us. This is something that I would most assuredly like to avoid. Thank you for consideration. Yours truly, Mark Bedanza, Ward 4 Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, can I see that letter?
Absolutely. Now Dick O'Brien obviously is, I don't know if he's in charge or runs the trail stewards, but I know he's pretty active in them. What kind of conversations have you been having with him about the trails and the?
We just talked about possibilities of connecting the trails elsewhere, and also with the issue of the illegal trails that are up there, because that was a concern of Roger Brooks from the water department, that there are some trails that have been cut through that are very close to the reservoir, and he said the other trails need to be 400 feet away from the reservoir.
Okay.
And you'd like, the illegal trails to kind of be blocked off or shut down, which I told him, obviously the commission supports that, we want to protect our reservoir.
Right.
When I talked to him, Brian was like, I think, we should put in a trail loop that goes up a little bit past the field, nothing too extensive to start, and then, the trail stewards can work on their extension that would go, so the reservoirs here would go this way up to connect to Leominster State Forest and the Moose trails, was his idea. We also just discussed the parking area, and he says we most definitely can reasonably fit in, 4 to 5 parking spaces. We don't have to put handicap parking because it's not handicap parking accessible area. Really, it's not really accessible at this time. Obviously, if that changes, we can address that. He agreed that, it was suggested by Ms. Sumner to put the parking at the top so you have more room, it'll be so close to the road, but he felt that, that was putting cars up at the top where you couldn't really view it from the road, so when it was parked up there, if police drove by, they wouldn't be able to see anything. So he agreed that the front would be the best. In his experience, he usually has Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts build the kiosks for him. And then I forget the name of the company that prints out the sign that they have, but he has that as well.
Okay. And he was supposed to be here, but you.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've been emergency
Okay.
up or anything. I can somebody give him a call.
These illegal trails, do we know, are they ATV, are they just trails people put in?
There's
or-
a mix of them. That was another issue, was that there was a lot of ATV trails that lead down. That obviously it's passive recreation only. There's not supposed to be any ATVs up there.
Okay.
So the main concern was, just shut down and the illegal trails.
Right.
And keep it, 400 feet away from the reservoir or further in his preference.
Right. Because if they're ATV, they probably tore up and they wouldn't worry about stuff getting in the drinking water. So
Yeah.
that's why I didn't know if it's just someone went and slashed a trail that it's just walking, or you can definitely tell if it's an ATV trail. And then evident, so. All right, so we obviously don't know if Dick O'Brien will be at the next meeting or.
He should, but I know he was very excited for me to reach out to him in this matter, so.
Okay, have you had any discussions with Judy Sumner of the
I've
rec
had a
department?
few, just kind of talk about the trail management aspect, and she's really been referring me to Dick, because Dick pretty much manages a lot of the city's trails, and it's what Leominster Trail stewards were put in place to do, so he's very passionate about it, and she keeps referring me to him.
Right.
Okay, of course.
Any other comments or questions?
I have just a quick comment.
Sure.
When we have groups that have been doing quite a lot of work for us, or any new volunteers, if we can somehow get them on the agenda before we start talking about all these other enforcement or these long-standing issues, just so that they're not sitting here all night for that. As they're I mean, I know Dick, and he's done a lot for the parks in town, and I'd hate to have someone that, when he does come, sit here for like 3 hours before he says, I'm here to help again, so, just consider that
So I
when
can
we
put
set
that
the agendas, that's all.
before the continued hearings.
Or at least,
Right,
I mean,
at
the top
you
of
can
the
talk
meeting.
with the chair at some
Okay.
point and figure out, I'd hate to see them sit in the audience all night or something like that, and they're essentially doing us favors, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the letter that you read into the minutes of our meeting
Yes.
with Councilor Bedanza, that's on City of Leominster City Council stationery.
That's
So my
correct.
question is, was this discussed at the City of Leominster City Council's meeting? And did they approve him to represent their council in sending that letter? Or is that just his own personal opinion?
I don't know.
So I did talk to the city clerk about this issue, that's why it was not read at the original meeting. There was some concerns about that, so I did speak with the city clerk about it. And as he is representing his constituents, not the council, and she said to make that clear that he's not representing the council's opinion, he's just representing his constituents. It did not need to be discussed at the city council meeting.
Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Just one quick thing, I think it's great that the trail stewards are getting involved. Everything that I've seen them do in the city, they've done a lot of things at Barrett Park, and, the people that they've come in before when they know they're gonna be crossing a stream, and they'll explain how they're gonna, cross the stream. They split the logs themselves and they span it, they're very thorough, they do a good job, and they try to keep the area as pristine as possible. So I think this is a great project to begin with, and I think having them involved is gonna make it even better.
I agree with that. I would agree with
I'll make sure I come at the beginning of the meeting. I know like.
Yeah, I mean, at least I'm glad they're involved. I just think that would help the whole situation, so.
Oh, I also am working with Mass Wildlife and Game. A lot of people are on vacation and finishing up their vacations and stuff, so they're working on getting me some signs that they would recommend using.
Okay. And you said Dick has some contacts and some stuff to actually
Yeah.
make the signs and things.
So it should be all fairly quick.
Okay, good. All right.
Should we open the sign? There's nothing really to discuss.
Yeah, does anybody in the audience want to speak? Really nothing, yes, sir.
At the last meeting, we spoke about, you had made a comment that you had driven by and couldn't see the marker that commemorated Mario Bowtell/Cutler, and that, because it was totally covered with poison ivy, well, that's been all cleared out. It's very, very visible, along with the signboard that's there. My guy Bob and I did it.
Thank you.
Bob had to go to the hospital.
Oh, no.
Well-
He's even more sensitive to PI than I am.
It was discussed, I have not been
Oh, it's
by,
done.
I
Just
did
to let you know,
notice
it's
that I brought
done.
up, I don't think you
And it
read
looks
the last
nice.
that you did that, we
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and maybe there's
so.
some other trimming that needs to be done when there's ample time and less heat, but the major marker is now very visible, as is the board that's there.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
And for the board's, interest, and I could even take a picture because I go by there all the time. The town of Sterling has a little conservation parking area on, I guess they still call, that's Haywood Road. Yeah, that's Haywood Road. If you go by Sholin Farm, go straight through the stop sign, go down the hill, through the woods and come to the top of the hill. On the left is Sterling Conservation Land, and they have put up a very simple, unobtrusive border for about a 4-car parking space. It's just like maybe 6 by 6 round posts, holes drilled through, and a nice draped rope. Just probably would hold 4 cars. I go by there all the time. I could take a picture of it and email it to you if that would save you a trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that's,
That's what
as
you're
we
thinking.
start looking at this piece of property to make it
That's
more
kind of the-
inviting, make it,
Yeah, well,
we
this
don't
is-
want it to be a glaring parking lot, but we want to make it inviting,
Yeah.
and we do appreciate your,
Glaring parking lot's not what I'm looking for.
No.
That's
it's
why
not
I'm
even-
making the
it's
suggestion.
it's a nature area, and that's what we want it to be
Sure.
used as, and that's
It is.
what we want it to stay, as nature
Yeah.
looking as possible, So.
And as regard to the bound between your conservation and my property there by the front corner of my barn, I mean, that metal pin, I'm not sure it ever was there when they did the survey when I bought the land from Mario. But there is a pin on the road down at the other corner of my field
Yeah.
where Frank Flynn's driveway is. It's right on the other side of Frank's driveway. It's a metal pin that's still present, so maybe from there they could, come up.
I think he was explaining to me, and I'm not a surveyor, so
Yeah.
I was a little lost in his lingo, but he did explain, he did find pins on
Yeah, I saw
both
that
other
he marked.
ends of the road.
No, up at the back corner, he marked
Yeah.
them with an orange ribbon, I saw that.
Yeah, he did tell me he found pins on the road as well, but he needed to go back and do some research, because he said, as you said,
But
sometimes
to
what
find
happens
the
is
pin
some were not
that's,
put in.
to find the pin that's most important to
Yeah,
this
that may be a good
discussion,
idea.
it's not present, it's gone.
Okay.
I'm not sure it was ever there, it's been 34 years that I've been there, I don't remember. But I don't think it would be that hard to find, given today's fancy GPS and optical survey equipment, where they've already got the other front corner one down at the Flynn's boundary with my property.
And we appreciate you maintaining that area.
Still looking for a used lawnmower from DPW, because it has beat the crap out of my poor old Gravely. So if you hear of anything, let me know.
All right.
Just one quick thing on that, I think having some sort of, because it's such a tight spot, having some sort of established boundary is important, just to preserve the neighbor's property.
Yeah, we definitely don't want it.
Keep all the vehicles contained, so that they're not parking on your lawn.
Yeah, and
Right.
I may very well have my trailer on your property, so I'd like to know where the line is too, so I can get it out of there. It's just parked in the most convenient spot right now.
Right. Okay. Budget, I got nothing for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Munis is not working. I'm unable to log in right now, and I can't seem to catch the gentleman I need to speak to about that.
Okay, not a problem. Agents report,
I don't have it at this time.
Okay.
I feel like we can.
chairman's report, I have nothing. Our next meeting is September 11th with the filing deadline of August 30th, 2018. Anything else we'd like to discuss? Can we ask what your?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I came in late. Does this meeting start at 7 or 6:30?
6.
Oh, 6, I totally was late. And I think we both were interested in the Lincoln Street discussion.
Okay.
There was,
We received some letters earlier in the month about the meeting tonight.
some wetland,
Okay.
reestablishing wetland, I think it was off of Lincoln Street. We live on Dawson, we're neighbors.
Yeah, it's not
Yep.
Lucifer, yeah.
I can discuss because it's still open to the public.
It's been continued to, so we can.
Discuss. Basically, the gentleman at 141, they filled in some wetlands. The engineer was here today discussing, his plan to remove the material, and we're gonna have a site walk over probably the next couple weeks, and basically address how we're gonna remove the material, or how he's gonna remove the material, and where it's gonna go, basically.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I guess basically over the years, he's filled in this wetland area, and it was brought to our attention, and now we're just trying to address it. So.
Would we know when the site,
Excuse me.
that's okay, would we be notified when the site walks are going to happen?
I typically post, if I am able to, unless it's like an emergency site walk, I try to post the site walks around City Hall. If you want to leave me your contact information, I can most definitely reach out to you.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
They're not open to the public, though, it's not a formal meeting,
Oh.
because you'd have to have permission from unless you can get permission from the property owner. Because we don't actually discuss the project, we're there just to
Yeah.
see what's going on, see it firsthand, so.
Right, and then you take a vote on it.
Then we would have another hearing back here.
So is it just concentrated on his property, or are you looking at that whole area of that Jocelyn Street, Day Street, Lincoln Street? that whole
But this
area?
project, it is just his property, because that's what it was coming
It's
to our
just where the
attention.
fill is, he realized he had made a mistake, he didn't realize obviously it was an error.
Yeah.
And so even if it looks like it's all on his property, but even if it wasn't, the neighboring property, he said he would remove it.
Yeah.
So the next meeting, if we have a site walk, they will probably come to us and
Okay.
have a discussion, we'll have some more information. At that point, you can ask questions or
All right.
speak your piece or whatever the case may
Okay, and
be.
I'm sorry, when did you say your next meeting was?
Our next meeting is September 11th,
Okay.
and it's in this room at 6 PM.
Okay, great,
So-
definitely at the time. Thank you.
We appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to discuss? If not, this meeting is adjourned.